Catalina, 29 years old, ranked 78 in the world, highest world ranking of 56. You've made it to 2 PSA finals. Thank you very much for joining me on Challenger Chats. I spoke with you a few weeks back and was delighted to hear that you've finally been able to do some traveling overseas. Do you feel like you're over the worst of it in Colombia with the lockdowns and restrictions?
Well, first of all, thank you, Lisa, for inviting me for this PSA Challenger Talks. And yeah, I mean, well, I don't think we are over it. It's the vaccine process just started here, but we still have a long way to go in Colombia, but at least it's getting back to normality with no more lockdowns, no more restrictions, for example, to enter supermarkets, shopping centers. But we do have to wear a mask and we have to train with a mask. But I mean, it's starting to get better, and we can at least we can travel. We just need a negative PCR test to leave the country and to come back.
Yeah. What's training like for you? Is it accessible?
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, we didn't have access for almost 6 months to courts. Maybe a random court in an apartment building, because I don't know why in Colombia there's a lot of squash courts in the building complex. They have like one or two, some have three. So I started maybe 5 months after lockdown to hit again in a court, but the public courts where we practice with Bogota League or Colombian team, they were closed. They open maybe in late November, but then in January we had another lockdown by areas, and the area where the courts are was in lockdown for 2 weeks. So we started to train, let's say normal, maybe 3 weeks ago. So it's been tough because it was kind of like looking for a court, but uh, not as usual. You know, here we have trainings Monday to Friday, twice a day. So at least now we're getting back to normal.
Do you train like a centralized program in Bogota, or is it individual? You're looking for your own hits and then maybe you'll have sessions with your coach, or do you have a group?
We have a group now since Martin Knight came to Colombia. I think he's been here almost 4 years ago, I think. He made us more like train together, go to the courts and have a schedule, because before that it was more like everyone would train at their club and maybe hit with someone in the team once or twice a week, but nothing was organized. We didn't have like a schedule or courts. So a lot of people, like maybe 8 people, could go at a time. So that's been really great to train in a group, because we get to play with each other, we get to do some challenge matches and like mix it up a little bit. And besides that, we also have access to the gym where we can choose if we want to do it with the teammates, or maybe some others have their own trainers. So it's really flexible, but now there's the opportunity and the option to go and train with the group.
Yeah. We have a similar setup here in Scotland. We have a centralized program, everyone trains together, and it's quite nice. Like, we do an individual sport, we compete alone, and just to be together most days kind of gives a different vibe to the sport.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great, especially because those days that, I don't know, you're very tired, and if it was just you on court, you're probably not gonna push yourself as much. So it's nice when you go and you just meet your friends and train together, because you push one another, and it's like a different environment than training by your own all the time.
So I'm not sure if you've watched any of the Challenger chats previously, but I like to get to know you a little bit better by asking you some facts about yourself. To begin with, I'm going to tell you 3 facts that I know about you that I think are accurate, and you're going to tell me 3 back. So I'll start off with mine. My first one is you majored in studio arts with a focus on photography. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
2, you're a level 1 WSF coach.
Yep.
And 3, you attended college in the States at Trinity.
Yeah. Very
3
good.
Great. What have you got?
So let's see. I speak Italian. I also minored in Italian language and architecture studies at Trinity. So I'm a little bit rusty right now because I haven't practiced it a lot, but yeah, that's my third language, Italian. I don't like ketchup, for example. And third one can be, well, I mean, that I'm a photographer, that not many people know that. I mean, they see me around with the camera, but they don't know that I'm actually taking a lot of pictures and trying to do something with my photographs.
You're someone who's always intrigued me. You're always smiling, often seeking adventure and exploring, and your hobbies off court are incredibly creative. Your playing style on court is probably a combination of all of that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree for sure. I mean, I guess my artistic side or my creative side goes along on court with just doing different shots from all over the court, but sometimes it's too much. I mean, and sometimes I tell myself that you just have to play straight, but I don't know, that doesn't go with me a lot. So yeah, definitely I can see that all that reflects on court.
Where does this creativity come from?
Well, growing up, I used to see Miguel Angel at my club a lot, and I started to just play with him or do some drills. And he was starting to do some flicks or some like, I forgot the name in English. Some like deception shots, and I was always trying to replicate, and he would teach me. And then I found myself, while I was doing solo, I was just trying to do different stuff, different flicks or different deceptions, like moving a lot the racket before hitting the ball. So I think a big part came from him because we're good friends since I started playing squash. But also, I guess since little, I like arts and I like being creative. I'm very I like to take, I don't know, maybe a piece of paper and do something with that piece of paper. So I think all that mentality subconsciously translates to the squash court. And I like trying new things. So for example, I was not afraid to try a trick in a match. I mean, a lot of times you screw it up, but if you don't try it, then you're never gonna be able to do it in a match. So
Yeah, I really like that. I like that as a mindset in general. I was talking recently with my coach about being fearless and where this whole fearlessness comes from. And certainly a large part of my squash career, I feared a lot. And I wish that somebody had told me to fail more and try more, fall more, like you said. So I think it certainly stands you for good stead later in life and throughout your squash career. So talking of your hobbies, we've got photography, obviously, which we've touched on, and art. There's also glass cutting in there, which I've seen on Instagram. Has lockdown given you the opportunity to explore these further?
yeah, I think that, I mean, definitely, because probably it's been 10 years since I've always been on the road, and I had never been maybe more than a month and a half or 2 months at home. And when I was home, I was always, I mean, training and doing other stuff. But yeah, definitely lockdown gave all of us a lot of empty time, like time to do whatever. And say I started to do that glass cutting in Richmond, Virginia, which I lived in Richmond 2 years after I graduated from Trinity. And I I bought this machine because I remembered that when I studied abroad in South Africa, they were selling these bottles, glass bottles, and I thought it was very cool because I mean they have cool images of the logos and different colors, and you're recycling at the same time. So I just ordered the machine and started experimenting, and I really liked it. And it's also I just built my own water glasses or whatever for my house. I didn't have to buy that many glasses. So it's definitely, I mean, it's a cool thing, and you can experiment a lot to do drinking glasses, to do flower bases, or just to put, for example, your pen and pencils. There's a bunch of things you can do with that. So it's pretty fun, actually.
Could it be a new business venture?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I mean, in back again in Richmond, I had in my apartment, I had a little corner where I would sell those glass bottles, and I would also sell some photographs and some prints because I started to rent at my place as for Airbnb because I started to travel a lot and I still needed to pay for rent. So I decided to do Airbnb, and I would just leave my artwork and let's see, trust if someone wanted to buy something. But I started like with that idea, and definitely I have a lot of ideas in mind, but I just need a lot of time to put them together.
Why did you choose Richmond?
It was very random. I was gonna be in Washington D.C., but it didn't work out because they were looking more for, let's say, a full-time squash coach, and maybe I could travel once in a while to play tournaments. And a year before that, I had played a PSA in Richmond, and Patrick Chifunda, the coach there at the Country Club of Virginia, asked me if I wanted to help him out. But I told him I was gonna be in DC, and when DC didn't work out, I immediately contacted him, and we had an interview, and it worked out. So I moved to Richmond. It was just 2 hours from DC, so it was easy for me to rent a car and move all my stuff. But I didn't know anyone there, so it was interesting. But I really liked Richmond, and I met a lot of great people over there. I mean, just like I think with squash, you have a great advantage because it's very outgoing and you make friends very fast and you have great contacts. So I really enjoyed my time in Richmond, and afterwards I made friends, and a good friend from Colombia moved to Richmond actually, and then a friend from Trinity. So by the time I left, I had a lot of good friends over there.
February marked the 17th anniversary of a tragic event that happened in Colombia that unfortunately you were part of. 36 people were killed in a terrorist bombing at your squash club, and 200 were also injured, including you. What was that period of your life like?
It was like a nightmare because when I woke up after the explosion, I had no idea what was happening. And I thought I was dreaming, and I thought I was having a nightmare while I was waiting for my mom to pick me up. I was very young, I was 11 years old. So I didn't have a good idea of the country situation, of the guerrilla group, the FARC, and what was like to be in a bomb. I just didn't know that could happen to me, for example. And yeah, it was weird. I mean, to wake up and to think that, I mean, you have no idea what just happened. You're just laying down and everything's on fire and destroyed. But like my squash bag, I don't know why, was hanging from like from a piece of a rod, a metal rod. So my first intention was to like get up and grab it, but it was way too high up and I was hurting too much. So like I couldn't get up myself. So I just lay there and I started calling for help until probably 15 minutes later, this guy heard me and he said like, stay there, I'm coming for you. So I just stayed there and finally he found me and picked me up and took me out through one of the entrance of the club. The club has two entrances. And it's just weird that I remember everything since I woke up. I was probably 15, 20 minutes unconscious. But after that, I remember everything until they put me in the ambulance. They asked me for my parents' cell phone numbers, my house number, and I gave them the numbers. They took me to the hospital, and probably this was around 8 p.m. And my parents didn't know I was okay until around 11 p.m. because all the signal was off. So I bet it was way harder for them, to know I was inside the club and have no idea if I was okay. And when my mom was coming back towards the club to pick me up with my brother, there was a lot of traffic. So they asked and they told them like a bomb just went off at Nogad. So I can't imagine like what they felt, and they just started running towards the club. But it was so nice to see them again when I was getting my x-rays done. But of course I could see they were they like their faces, they just, I mean, they were crying and they're very worried about what would happen to me. But at least they saw I was okay and I was responding to everything they would ask.
I find it so interesting that all you're speaking about is how your family were and if they were okay, and you were worried about what they were thinking. Meanwhile, you're actually in hospital getting x-rays.
Yeah, because I mean, I had no idea what was going on. I don't know. I just knew, of course, after I woke up and after they picked me up and stuff, I knew that it was real. Something had happened, but I had no idea. They knew what happened. I had no idea. So I was just thinking actually about all the people that I have played within that day, my school friends, squash coaches, because I was wondering, when I woke up, there was no one around me. I couldn't see anyone. So I was wondering like where are all these other people? Where are my friends? Where are the squash coaches? But most of them, I mean, luckily had left the club earlier. So, I mean, and I was also lucky that they found me pretty quick, maybe 40, 45 minutes after it exploded. And yeah, I mean, I was very lucky because there's other cases that they couldn't find them until the next day. And of course, they were they were like more badly injured than me.
How did the local squash community react to this?
They were, I mean, very shocked. This club, the club Nogal, is not just like a squash club. It's more like a business club that has some sports, and squash is a big sport. So it was just an attack towards politicians and more of people of the very right wing in Colombia. So I mean, everyone was confused at the beginning why the club, but afterwards, that they said that there were some politicians meeting with these people, and that was a place where they would go off. And I don't know why, like the club, there's a whole mystery still. Everyone was very supportive with, with me. I received so many emails and letters from people who I didn't even know, from the whole world squash community. I actually have all that in a box, and there were letters from World Squash Federation. There were letters from coaches, from other like people all over the world. So that was pretty incredible to have that support, and it gives you like a little bit of hope to like come back. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, one other squash coach from the club died, so that was very sad, like for the community. But in general, everyone was very supportive to just help bring back the community and to make the club again like a squash center, and to be happy, to be hopeful. So first time I walked back in was meanwhile they were reconstructing it, because I I don't know why I wanted to see the club like after all this, when I was able to walk. Um, so I went there, but yeah, it felt weird stepping back in the club. I mean, a lot of people didn't come back, and they just hate the club. So
It's so brave of you to continue to go back in there and also to keep playing squash. You obviously never lost the passion for playing. What did squash mean something more to you after?
yeah, I mean, not just squash, but life in general. It's more about taking opportunities and enjoying life, because you never know when you're gonna be, when is your day, when you're gonna be gone. So I think that really, I mean, squash for sure motivate me to get better faster, and sports in general, because I mean, at 11 years old, I didn't know that I was gonna play squash professionally, but what I did know was that sports was being active was a big part of my life. So I just wanted to heal quickly, to go back and play football, to go back and play volleyball, to play squash, to run around, to climb trees, like anything. So I I was very disciplined with all my physiotherapies, and it was so frustrating not being able to walk for 2 months, and then kind of like learning to walk again, but I could only use one crutch, because I had broken my left shoulder, so my left arm, like here. So I couldn't use the other crutch. So it was difficult, but I mean, definitely, I would say that squash was one of the main things that made me get better faster.
On to brighter things. Monday is International Women's Day, which brings me nicely to talk about growing women's squash. You were part of the first all female coaching course ever to be held in Latin America a few months ago. What
Yep.
does this mean for squash and sport in your region?
Yeah, it was definitely huge opportunity for Colombia, and it was great to see that it was emphasized only for women, because we know that we're lacking women in squash, and in Colombia we're lacking a lot of women. So having female coaches, I think it's inspires more the junior girls, and maybe I mean, more girls will join if the coach is a female. Um, so I mean, it was a great opportunity, and I remember when our president from the federation called me and said, like please, I want you to take this course. Um, so the other girls feel also motivated to take it. So I was like yeah, sure. I mean, I think it would be useful, because I mean, I had coached before, but it's a different perspective. I was coaching from the player side, and now I learn more to coach, well, from the coach side. So so it was good, and I think it showed to the whole world that women can also be coaches, and that it's possible, that there's that opportunity if they want to take it. The door is there. You just have to knock and to open it. So I hope that our female coach inspires other countries to do the same thing, and to give them up the opportunity to other female in other countries.
Are there any other initiatives that you're involved with to help promote women's squash?
Yeah, actually, during lockdown, another initiative started called Squash Latina, which we are a group of different women from different Latin countries that are trying to motivate and to promote women's squash more, to maybe go to different communities in your countries and try to bring girls, to show that squash is accessible for anyone. It's not just a elite sport, a high class sport, because that's how they see it still here in Colombia, since the squash courts that you find are inside the country club. So we want to make squash more public, more accessible, and invite all women from all ages. But of course, our priority is junior girls, to get to know this sport, and hopefully they like them and they start playing squash. So I mean, we're Squash Latina grew so fast. We are already like 33 members from almost all the countries in South America and Central America and the Caribbean. So the idea is to maybe offer some clinics and to engage more the community, the pro players of every country, to interact more with the junior girls, and create America's PSA Women's Tour, so the little girls can see and get motivated by the PSA players. And eventually it would be amazing to do, of course, junior tournaments for them, because I think what we lack in South America is more opportunities, to more tournaments in our nearby countries, because it's hard to travel so far to start competing. We also want them to replicate this in other countries, in other continents. So because if all of us are working together, it's going to be easier to expand and to get more juniors going. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, the hardest part here in Latin America, I would say, is to get sponsors. It's very hard to raise money here, because we don't there's not the culture like in US that you donate for every nonprofit. And
Well, Catalina, thank you very much for taking the time today to talk with me. And thank you also for being very brave and sharing some inspiring stories. Good luck when tournaments start back up and you start doing some more traveling, and I hope to see you soon.